rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Happy Father's Day to all those who are listening from the land down under. Just been told by our Australian contingent that it is Father's Day down there for them, so happy Father's Day to all of you Aussies. I don't know, are you called Aussies or are you called Awkers? I've heard both. So I'm not too sure which one it actually is. So maybe Becky can let us know. Anyway, all right, folks, let's go ahead and get things kicked off tonight. I believe it's my news, but hold on, I gotta check. Yeah, it is. It's my news. My news is on tap for tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. So yeah, let's go ahead and get that kicked off. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me, and place your hand over your heart and follow along with my news as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and of course, I thank you, My News, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style, and then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file that you get that generated, and either send it off to me via email or share it to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. I am still looking for number 20. I've got 19. I'm still looking for number 20. So, yeah, and like B. Patrick has pointed out over on Rumble, thank you to everyone who has sent in the pledge. That seems to be a wonderful thing, a common fan favorite, let's put it that way. Fan favorite, kind of like Pet of the Week and Question of the Week. Speaking of Question of the Week, I have a Question of the Week from G tonight. And G has got some serious questions. He packed a lot into this question, so we'll have to play, or we'll have to play around with that later on at the end of the program. So, yeah, and just so you know, that's Pet of the Week and Question of the Week can all be sent to fans at AmericanPerspective.online. I'm really not that complicated here, folks. Anyway, all right. Okay, so, oh boy. All right. What's going on with Fat Paws? Sorry. Fat Paws. Let's see. He's up in the chat here. I gotta find it here. Let's see. Okay. So folks, let me just put it to you like this with regards to, a lot of people seem to think, or at least especially a lot of those on the left seem to think that those on the right are just like uncaring people. And while the left actually proves it on a regular basis, we on the right do not. We on the right actually are compassionate and caring about people. We just don't want our government and our taxpayer dollars to be the compassionate, caring portion. That should be done by private entities. And every once in a while, you'll find people and you'll find good deeds for the day. In this particular case, Fat Paws apparently did a good deed for the day. So it sounds like there was a lady at Publix. Now, for those of you that don't know, Publix is kind of it's like a grocery store. Let's just put it that way. Down in the South. And apparently this lady was crying as she was heading out to her car. And Fat Paws, being the individual that he is, of course, stopped and asked if she was okay. And apparently she unfortunately had lost her husband a week ago, and obviously was something triggered, or, still going through the grief pattern for all of that. So shout out to Fat Paws for at least noticing, number one. I'm being told by 3 Chevy it is the grocery store, not just a grocery store, but the grocery store. Anyway, so shout out to Fat Paws, because Fat Paws did a good deed and at least noticed, rather than, of course, going through our lives like many of us always do, being wrapped in our own problems and our own issues. And anyway, so there you go. At least he attempted to, give her a little bit of something. He noticed. That's the main thing. Sometimes that's all it takes, is to notice. All right. Let's see. Now I'm kind of off track here because I got changed. Let's go ahead and talk about tonight's drink then. Tonight is Buffalo Trace, and as you can see, I don't have very much left of the bottle. Means I'm going to have to shift over to something different, or possibly get another bottle of something. Yeah. So I'm drinking it out of the wonderful Whiskey Warrior P1 gift. This is half of the full gift. But it's in a glass that says, "It takes stones to drink with whiskey." Whiskey being me. So there we go. There's the stones, the requisite stones in the bottom of the glass, man, let me tell you. So here we go. First sip of the evening. Oh, I'm being told to chug the rest of this all down. That's probably another glass. Part of a glass anyway. Yeah. This is not the kind of stuff this isn't like rot cut whiskey here, man. This is sipping whiskey. Bourbon is sipping, you sip it. You sip it. But anyway, yes, it is a fantastic glass. Fantastic gift from my Whiskey Warrior P1 fans. I love all of y'all. All right, let's go ahead and move on to tonight's headline sponsor, which is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials developed using primary source documents taught from the American view of law and government, as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. Unlike what Tim Kaine apparently seems to think. Anyway, the IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online. To get great content, to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or If you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Check this thing out. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. No cheap glue here, folks. It is stitched all the way through the leather and the pages contained within. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship defects, such that if something does go wrong in that time period, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. As 3 Chevy says, each purchase of the aforementioned round-cornered book will cause a liberal to get explosive gas. Yeah, they hate this thing, trust me. It's their kryptonite. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you study and achieve your civics badge in Scouts. It will also help you pass your civics exam. It has, as my P1 warriors all know, sexy rounded corners. Go and get yours today by heading off to constitution.americanperspective.online. And also don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's offerings, as they have a fantastic collection of incredible books and information and all kinds of stuff. You really should go and check them out. And of course, I appreciate them for allowing me to be an affiliate. You know, I chuckled a little bit earlier during it because of the fact that, Nana called me out on my sipping bourbon. She basically said that what I had left in the bottle is just a good sip. And then she proceeded to say that she downs it. Yeah, sorry, but I'm not really into downing my whiskey like that. It's a sipping whiskey. I'm just telling you, just sip it. Anyway. Oh, all right. Well, let's go ahead before this show gets too far off the rails. Let me see, which one is that? Yeah, too far off the rails. There we go. We haven't seen the whiskey train in a while. The whiskey train going off the tracks in quite some time. So let's go ahead and get to tonight's first segment, which of course is On This Day in American History. And, of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full of all kinds of factoids and information. And as you can see, we're getting down. That means we're getting closer and closer to the end of the year. But you can go and check it out. You might want to get, what you can. Oh. There goes Angus. He's got to come into the studio. Anyway, you might want to get one while you can. It makes a great Christmas gift. Let's just put it that way. All right, September 6th. That is tonight, right? Yes. All right, we're going to talk about Jane Addams, which, by the way, I hope everybody has purchased their Powerball ticket for tonight. 1.8, I think, 1.8 billion. Not quite the top of the ladder yet, but it's getting pretty close. Anyway, all right. Oh, yeah, in the bar. No, he's in the studio. The bar, this is just a backdrop. Come on. Anyway, all right, let's talk about September 6th, and let's talk about Jane Addams. Democratic government, associated as it is with all the mistakes and shortcomings of the common people, still remains the most valuable contribution America has made to the moral life of the world. Jane Addams wrote that, born on this day in 1860 in Cedarville, Illinois. She heightened that contribution with Hull House, a settlement house in Chicago where Addams and other reformers helped the poor, including immigrant families. As Addams recounted in her book, 20 Years at Hull House, the seeds of her passion were planted at about age 7 on a day when she passed through the poorest part of a neighboring town with her father, who was a prosperous miller. On that day, I had my first sight of the poverty which implies squalor, and felt the curious distinction between the ready poverty of the country and that which even a small city presents in its shabbiest streets. I remember launching at my father the pertinent inquiry why people lived in such horrid little houses so close together, and that after receiving his explanation, I declared with much firmness when I grew up I should, of course, have a large house, but it would not be built among other large houses, but right in the midst of horrid little houses like these. More than 2 decades later, Adams moved into a dilapidated Chicago mansion once owned by businessman Charles J. Hull. There, in the crowded immigrant slums, she and her fellow reformers provided shelter, education, and affection for thousands. Everything from maternal care to concerts to language classes and lessons in citizenship. Adams served as head resident of Hull House for 46 years, the rest of her life practicing a democracy that welcomed the common people from around the world. And that is tonight's On This Day in American History. Now, contrary to popular belief, that is actually how this country is supposed to work. It is the public, the general people, not the government, that is supposed to take care of things. It is not the government. That's not federal government's job. Now, state government could take it on if they want, but that's not federal government's job. So, there you go. Oh, they're talking. Actually, Nana, it would be less than that. It would be less than that because you got to take, in terms of that amount of money, you got to take 37% off for taxes. You know, if you go to, I think it's usamega.com, it will tell you exactly what you would get out of anything in terms of after taxes and state taxes are taken, because it all depends on whether or not you have state taxes taken out too. So your actual cash out would probably be somewhere in the realm of like 500 to, probably about 500 million. But still, I mean, that's a shit ton of money, folks. That's a shit ton of money. Just saying. Anyway. All right. Well, you'll recall that I talked just recently, I don't remember if it was last night or the night before, but how the Department of Justice was taking a look at possibly putting on a ban that would possibly cause a ban on transgenders acquiring guns. I've, at the time when I started talking about it, I was basically saying, hey, this I don't agree with, because I don't agree with that not all transgenders are, would necessarily qualify for having something banned. And so whenever you have somebody who basically gets their rights taken away, because again, as I've said in the past, the Second Amendment does have the qualifier shall not be infringed. And realistically, you can't just take somebody's rights away without just cause. I mean, obviously people who get incarcerated have their rights taken away, but that's because they've broken the law. So that essentially is where I kind of stand with it. And then unless there is an overwhelming evidence and proof that somebody is either about to break the law or has broken the law, you can't really infringe on their rights. And that's a principle of Americanism. Well, thankfully, I am not the only one who believes that way, because of the fact that and by odd, I mean, I don't think the left would have expected this, but the odd duck has entered into the room and entered the chat and has basically said, hey, yeah, no, we don't agree with this. Believe it or not, the National Rifle Association has basically stated, we are not behind this idea of this transgender gun ban. And this is literally my take on it completely. In fact, the National Rifle Association put out a statement and said the NRA supports Second Amendment rights of all law-abiding Americans to purchase and use firearms. NRA does not and will not support any policy proposals that implement sweeping gun bans that arbitrarily strip law-abiding citizens of their Second Amendment rights without due process. Now, they said it a little bit more eloquently than I did, but the fact of the matter is, it's still here. It is still here that this is something that we cannot allow this. I don't care whether it's the Trump administration or the Biden administration or, some XYZ Jane Doe John Doe administration. This is an attack on an individual's gun rights and the rights of the people. And just like I've said on multiple occasions, if you have any indications of specific racism, I don't care whether you're left or right or anything else, but if you have any straight up examples and straight up instances, I should say, of racism in this country, I will stand next to you and fight against that racism. You can't just sit and blanket label people like this. This is not something that is efficient, number one, nor is it constitutional or legal for all of this. And not only that, but it's not only the NRA that jumped on this, but also the Gun Owners of America. Now, Gun Owners of America is another group. Now, they're known for taking a little bit more of a harder line against gun controls and gun bans, but they jumped on and said the exact same, or I should say, relatively same thing. They said, as well as the NRA, Gun Owners of America issued a clear, uncompromising stance on the issue. GOA opposes any and all gun bans. Full stop. The GOA wrote on X. Now, folks, that is standing up for constitutional rights. That is what standing up for constitutional rights means. Now, again, there may be something to this. There may be something to this kind of a, potential. But again, I personally fall on the same line as I would with people who get arrested for drunk driving. You don't attack the car. You attack the individual who did the thing. Okay? So, I mean, again, folks, this is not constitutional. This is not a defense of any kind of right or anything else when it comes with this. This is part of the problem that we have in this country, whether you're on the left or on the right. This is part of the problem, is that we forget the fact that there are constitutional rights. Many years ago, a little over 30, I stood up and swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That doesn't say all enemies that I agree with or disagree with. It says all enemies. And so if the Trump administration were to do something like this, now they're talking about it, but if they were to do something like this definitely would be something that I would be obligated based on my oath to stand up against. I am not going to sit here and lay down on the idea that, oh yeah, Trump knows what he's doing. No, this is illegal, unconstitutional, and believe it or not, just plain wrong. So, glad to see that the National Rifle Association and even the Gun Owners of America, they are standing up and saying, no, this is not right. Because that is the correct answer in this case. And as much as I may support Trump and his policies, I'm definitely not going to support him in this kind of a situation. So all of you leftist lunatic morons who jumped on my Facebook account and X account and say that I've just, performed sexual exploitations on Trump for the fun of it. No. Like I've told you before and like I've said before, when he's in the wrong, I'm going to call him out for it. And he is definitely in the wrong here. So, there you go. Well, speaking of Trump, let me go ahead and do this. Speaking of Trump, Trump has now weighed in on the New York City mayoral race. And he is kind of right about this. Trump has suggested that he wants two people to drop out to set up a one-on-one mayoral race with Ma'am Danny in New York City. And he is right in this sense, in that he says the only way to beat the socialist candidate is by clearing the mayoral field and make it a one-on-one race. See, that way you don't have a splitting of the vote. See, this is part of the reason why I sit here and I say, as much as I don't like our two-party system in this country, I fall more on the lines of where most Americans back in the early days, the very early days of America, where political parties were generally abhorrent to most people. The idea that we have a situation, and that we have a situation like where we have two political parties, is a bit of a problem. However, but the challenge here is the fact that that's the way our system is set up. See, we don't have a parliamentary system in any way, shape, or form across this country for electing representatives. What we have is essentially a winner-take-all, which sets up the idea of having a two-party system. And so having a two-party system makes it to where if you have, say, one Democrat, in this case, and by the way, he's pulling about a third of the voting in all of the polls, maybe even a little bit more than a third in some cases. But all of that, you cannot have an even split or any kind of split. And this is part of the reason why I keep saying everybody who keeps running under the Green Party and everything else, as much as I would love to be able to say, hey, for an example, I'm a fan of the Constitution Party. I'm not a member yet. However, I've been considering it. I've been looking at it. I've been examining it. I've been thinking about it. But I like the idea of the Constitution Party. But do I actually think that the Constitution Party is really going to go anywhere? Probably not. At least not until the Democrat Party or the Republican Party explodes on itself. Now, personally, between you and me and everybody in the sound of my voice, I hope that the Democrat Party does implode. Yeah, I would love to do that. But Trump is right. This guy, Ma'am Danny, has enough sycophantic morons that are following along with him that are like basically trying to say that socialism is the way when it's not. But they're sitting there and they're talking about Ma'am Danny, and if New York City elects Ma'am Danny, I'm going to tell you we're going to have essentially a petri dish that demonstrates exactly what's going to happen with socialism in America. Should it become the integral part of New York City, we're going to see in real time the experimentation that is known as socialism that has never worked anyplace else. Never worked anyplace else. So, all of that being said, I do agree with President Trump on this. We need to have the opponents, no matter who they are. If it turns out to be, what's the guy? And I'm trying to, Andrew Cuomo. Okay. If it does turn out to be Andrew Cuomo, then great. If it turns out to be Eric Adams, great. But these guys need to sit down and try and figure this out and be like, you know what? We cannot, for the sake of America, we cannot allow Ma'am Danny to get in as the mayor of New York City. Now, Cuomo, of course, at this point, he kind of sort of has the edge. And we do have, of course, both Adams and Cuomo have decided to run as independents, by the way. But in this particular case, there's also another man by the name of Curtis Silva. And Trump, I think, was asking Curtis Silva to bow out. So here's the problem is that, again, Ma'am Danny is the clear polling front runner on all of this. And, he's not what I would consider being a good, he talks a lot, he talks well, but I don't foresee him being a good leader because he's got way too many policies that are just going to do nothing but tax and destroy. That's it. And he's actually a socialist. The president called him a communist, but he's actually a socialist. But anyway. So, yeah. Now, that being said, even though Trump called out, he didn't say necessarily which candidates he would like to see. But top Trump advisors are reportedly trying to persuade Adams and Silva to drop out of the race, according to the New York Times. So we'll see what happens up there. We shall see what happens up there in New York City. But I'm going to tell you, man, if you vote for Ma'am Danny, you will deserve what you are going to get good and hard. So, there you go. Okay, let me go ahead and talk to you about. Let's talk about coffee. Yeah, I was actually looking at my coffee cup this morning. My coffee cup that holds 16 ounces of the wonderful brown elixir that wakes me up in the morning every single morning. That wonderful cup that says Father like no other on it. The fantastic gift from my kids for Father's Day. Speaking of Father's Day, don't forget Aussie Father's Day is today. All of that being said, though, that wonderful elixir, that caffeine-infused drink for the morning is in my coffee. Or is in my cup, I should say. It's in my coffee. Yeah, caffeine is in the coffee. So, if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee yet, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit has just dropped. They claim only 1,000 units. I'm betting there's less than that there. So, in each starter kit, you are getting the bold dark roast that hits hard. You'll also get the smooth medium roast, as well as you'll be able to try the Vitality Mushroom Coffee, which has clean energy and laser focus with no crash later. You get a chance to pick which one of those three you like, or you may like all three of them. And so you go ahead and just refill on all three, whatever you feel. Whatever you feel. It's kind of like whiskey. All kinds of tastes and manners of tastes that are out there for it. All of those coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also going to receive in that kit my personal favorite, the Gold Spoon Clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. Like she doesn't have a lot of those. Anyway, you'll also receive a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just $99. That's a significant savings there, folks. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on a Rumble and wondering if it actually is worth it. Yep. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to 1775, those are the numbers, 1775coffee.com/studio. That's a // for those that don't know. That's the question mark key on your keyboard. So again, 1775coffee.com/studio, STUDIO, and grab your starter kit before they are gone. Once again, that's 1775coffee.com/studio to grab your starter kit. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that actually stands for something, just like Rumble does. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit today. All right. Well, did anybody hear about this? I hope so, because this kind of hit the news, and some lefties were a little bit miffed about this thing. But apparently, there were 450 illegal aliens that got busted in Georgia at the Hyundai plant. South Korea, where Hyundai is based, of course, is concerned. 450 illegal aliens. Yeah. You believe that? So, ICE, federal agents on Thursday from several agencies, ICE, of course, being one of them, conducted a raid at the Georgia electric car battery factory owned by Korean manufacturer Hyundai. And there were approximately 450 illegal aliens that are now in federal custody. The raid followed several months of investigation. Several other agencies, including U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Homeland Security Investigations, took part in the raid at the Hyundai LG Energy Solution battery plant construction site in Elabel, which is located about 20 miles outside of Savannah, Georgia. The raid is considered the largest such action at a U.S. manufacturing site in years and follows many other major raids at other workplaces over the last few months under the Trump administration. The national origins of the 450 illegals have not been released. There is apparently a lot of information that isn't being released yet due to the ongoing investigation. The facility where the raid took place is under construction, with an estimated price tag between $4.3 billion and $7.6 billion, and production is expected to begin by the end of the year. The facility is being built to supply electric vehicle batteries to a nearby Hyundai electric vehicle factory near the city of Savannah. Construction on the site has, for the time being, ceased. So let me make this clear. These are not people who were working in the facility building the batteries. These were construction folks that were building the plant that is supposed to be opening up and starting production by the end of the year. So these are more than likely construction crews and construction crew personnel that are being picked up. So yeah. Now, the South Korean government apparently is concerned. The South Korean Foreign Ministry expressed, concern and regret over the raid, sent a counselor and embassy officials to the location. The spokesperson for South Korea's foreign ministry said Friday, according to the Financial Times, our company's economic activities and our people's rights should not be infringed unfairly in the U.S. legal enforcement process. That was a statement by Lee Jae-wong. So, unfortunately, though, that here's the thing, is that when you're doing business in the United States, you're supposed to abide by U.S. laws. U.S. laws basically saying that you can't hire undocumented illegal aliens. Now, nobody's rights are being infringed unfairly in this operation that we're aware of. The raid was conducted after a lengthy investigation to enforce United States immigration law, federal and state employment laws as well. So, yeah. Now, a Hyundai spokesman stated the company is cooperating with all enforcement efforts. So, which is, kind of how it should be as far as that goes. I mean, these people, look, chances are, and I'm going to be, I'm probably, I may be overstepping here, but my best guess is that the people that were picked up were subcontractors of the general contractor or subcontracting companies that were doing work on the plant, building it. That would be my guess. So, basically, that's my guess, but obviously we're going to find out more as time goes on. I don't necessarily believe that these people were part of like Hyundai Corporation. Again, they are most likely just potentially local contractors and that are being used. So anyway, but that would be my guess. I could be wrong on that, but that would be my guess. That's probably where a vast majority are going to come from once everything is released and we've figured it all out. Anyway. Yeah, there's that Buffalo Trace for you. All right. So speaking of an illegal immigrant that apparently has bounced himself around the globe, not by his own doing. But, the left keeps wanting to, put this guy up on a pedestal. You remember Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Well, he came back to the United States, was taken in by Tennessee, was arraigned on human trafficking charges. The court released him at that point, put him into ICE's custody. ICE tried to deport him again, only this time they wanted to avoid El Salvador because of the initial judge's order that, hey, you can't send him to El Salvador. So anyway, then they said, okay, fine. We're not going to send him to El Salvador. We're going to bounce him. We've decided that since we can't send him to El Salvador, we're going to send him somewhere else. Well, then the misnomered Maryland man ended up having a court, an Obama judge, block his deportation. So this guy, let's just say that he's just bouncing all over the place because of the fact that, they should have just left him in it. I mean, seriously, the left should have honestly just left the guy in freaking El Salvador. I mean, that's where he's from anyway, so what the hell? But anyway, the case itself, of course, is just all over the place. Well, this guy apparently, they were going to try and send him to Uganda at one point, and a federal judge stepped in. So this is U.S. District Judge Paula Zinnes. He ordered a temporary block of deportation on Monday afternoon. The ruling followed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus filed by the Maryland Mans, and I'm using that in quotes, by the way. His attorneys, Judge Zinnes, stated that there were several grounds on which he could provide relief. No, you can't. This is the thing with these judges. They seem to think that just because they're a judge, they have like this phenomenal cosmic power. No, they don't. They don't. They honestly don't. They don't have this. In fact, this shouldn't even be in the district courts. This should be in the immigration courts. I mean, this is kind of what SCOTUS was talking about, and how I was telling you last night about those district court judges complaining, whining, about the fact that SCOTUS is not helping them to stand up to their unconstitutional orders. But anyway, so, she basically said that she had some questions over whether Uganda would agree to protections such as granting him refugee status, allowing him to move freely within Uganda, and preventing his re-deportation to El Salvador. Well, the court's intervention has left the Maryland man, in quotes, in federal detention while an evidentiary hearing is scheduled. So his attorneys argued before the court that he should not be sent to Uganda, citing a fear of prosecution and persecution and torture. Yeah. Anyway, the same argument was used previously to prevent his removal to El Salvador. Well, Bill Melugin, Fox News correspondent Bill Melugin, obtained a document that shed more light on this whole dispute. So, posting the details to his X account, Melugin revealed an ICE communication sent through Abrego Garcia's attorneys last Friday. And ICE now apparently is planning on deporting him to a tiny African country that I don't think anybody in their right mind knows of. Have you ever heard of the country called Eswatini? Estwatini. Yeah. So apparently his lawyers have sent in a list of him claiming that he's going to have fear, that he is living in fear of persecution and torture in Uganda, plus 20 other countries that ICE is suggesting that he go to. So now ICE is saying, okay, fine. Well, those are your 20 countries, 20 plus countries, whatever it is. We're going to send you to a place that nobody has ever heard of. It's called Eswatini or Eswatini. I don't know how it's pronounced. I spelled it for you. Eswatini. So the email itself, of course, shows the mounting frustration within the Trump administration over this Abrego Garcia problem and his repeated claims of fear in multiple countries. According to the document, ICE wrote, "The claim of fear is hard to take seriously, especially given that you have claimed through your attorneys that you fear persecution or torture in at least 22 different countries." Here's the list, by the way. El Salvador, Uganda, Mexico, Belize, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Paraguay, Peru, Uruguay, Venezuela, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. Now, you notice that list is pretty much in the Western Hemisphere for the most part, with the exception of Uganda. Oh, this guy just doesn't want to be sent home. Let's just be honest. He just doesn't want to be sent anywhere other than staying here in the United States. That's essentially what he's trying to get at. Yeah. Anyway, in the same communication, ICE notified Abrego Garcia of a new destination for removal, the Kingdom of Eswatini. That's in southern Africa. Formerly known as Swaziland, it's a small landlocked nation bordered by South Africa and Mozambique. Yeah. Oh. So, by the way, this country was administered as a British High Commission territory until its independence came in 1968. The country was then renamed in 2018 to reflect the traditional name used by its citizens. The decision to designate this place as the removal destination marks the latest twist in this whole case that has spanned multiple states and international considerations. While the Trump administration continues to press forward with deportation efforts, the final outcome now depends on the forthcoming evidentiary hearing before Judge Zinnes. For now, Garcia remains in U.S. custody as the legal process moves forward. The case underscores the complexities of immigration enforcement. No, it's not really all that complex. I mean, let's just face it. It's not that complex. The role in the federal courts in reviewing deportation orders, yeah, that's not complex either. They have no jurisdiction, period. And the broader challenges involved in securing removal agreements with foreign governments. So this guy might be on his way to frickin' South or close to South Africa. Where, if you look at this guy, he might be mistaken. I hate to say this. This is really bad. He's certainly not going to, if he decided to cross over the border into South Africa, and I'll explain why here in a second. If you take a close look, this is what he looks like. Knowing that we have in South Africa, you have a problem with the South African, what's the best way to terminology this? The blacks in South Africa beating and killing whites in South Africa because of, due to apartheid or whatever before. Yeah. Okay. I don't see this guy really having much of an out. He better stay in Eswatini or wherever it is that he's going to end up. Personally, why don't they just send him? I mean, seriously, if he wants to stay in Western countries, why don't they just send him to Europe or something? I mean, Europe is taking all kinds of immigration, folks. Let's just send him over there. Anyway. All right. Well, as this immigration and these immigration fights continue, and don't forget, we have all of those cities and states like Illinois and Chicago who, claim to be sanctuary cities and states, and even my own state of Washington, city of Seattle, they all claim to be sanctuaries. Apparently, a city in North Carolina has decided to take it even one step further. So, in a unanimous vote on Tuesday, the Durham City Council passed a resolution to make Durham a, quote, Fourth Amendment workplace. Now, here's the reason why, okay? And I'm just going to read to you, because not very many people are necessarily well-versed in the Constitution. So if you happen to be a Whiskey Warrior P1 and have ordered one of the leather-bound U.S. Constitutions, you might want to open it up and follow along with me to the Fourth Amendment, which is, as stated, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by the oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now, the Fourth Amendment, obviously, is the one where it's unreasonable searches and seizures. Kind of like what happened at Mar-a-Lago, where it was unreasonable because they were searching through Melania's underwear drawer for crap that they didn't need. It was a general warrant. See, the Fourth Amendment basically states that in order to search somebody or search their home, you, as a police officer, must articulate exactly what you are looking for and articulate where that particular item or items might actually be. Here's the problem, okay? Or here's the challenge. First of all, we need to understand that the Constitution, regardless of what leftists seem to think, the Constitution, historically speaking, has always only applied to citizens in the legal sense. Because back in the day, back when there were Native Americans, tribes, they were not considered citizens. In fact, if the Indians were not taxed, they were not considered citizens. And the reason being is plain and simple. And this is part of the reason why I keep saying birthright citizenship is not and does not mean what all of the leftists seem to think it means. Because of the fact that the American government knew back when it was created, that the American government knew that there were other groups of people that lived on this land that were not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. One of them being the Native American tribes. So the general consensus has always been that the United States Constitution does not apply to people, even if they are here in the United States. The Constitution itself does not necessarily apply in terms of the legal sense. Now, all of that being the case, we as Americans, believing in things like inalienable rights or unalienable rights, whichever way you want to pronounce it, for all people, we extend the same protections under the U.S. Constitution to other folks that are here. That means that somebody who is here as an illegal alien, while they have the right to remain silent when they're getting arrested and stuff, okay, they are not necessarily subject to all of the protections under the Constitution. And this has actually been shown by even some of our own laws. For an example, when you're crossing the border, the Fourth Amendment does not necessarily apply. when you're crossing the border from another country, you must submit yourself to a search. See, this is part of the reason why when you go through, say, customs, coming into this country, your bags get searched. Even as an American citizen, I, at times, had my bags searched. Now, granted, most of the time they would just ask you, most of the time they're just going to ask you, do you have anything to declare? Assuming that you were, on the up and up. But that being said, at times you still have to have your bag searched and things like that. That is not a violation of the Fourth Amendment. The problem comes into play as you move away from the border. And this has already been through the court system. The challenge becomes when you move beyond the border. Now, there is a border search exception that has already been passed through SCOTUS and everything else in terms of the connection with all of this. Federal officers under the border search exception, federal officers may generally conduct routine warrantless searches of persons and items entering the United States without reasonable suspicion or probable cause of unlawful activity. However, stops and searches conducted in areas farther from the border may require at least heightened suspicion or a probable cause of unlawful activity to withstand the Fourth Amendment scrutiny. Now, I'm going to toss out this idea. Durham now basically stating, just like with the sanctuary cities, they're stating, hey, we recognize the fact that we have illegal aliens here. And because we're recognizing the fact that we have illegal aliens here, we're providing them sanctuary to prevent them from being captured by ICE. I would suggest that that is a heightened suspicion, because now you've not only called it out, but you're basically admitting the fact that you know that there's people there, that there's people who are illegal there. And I step one step further, and, being a logical individual like I am, I question whether or not this particular scenario actually might come into play. So, these cities that are sitting there saying that they're sanctuary cities and won't enforce the law, well, under Title 8 U.S. Code 1324, it talks about this. So this is item 1A, paragraph 3, or III. Knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact that an alien has come to, entered, or remains in the United States in violation of law, conceals, harbors, or shields from detection, or attempts to conceal, harbor, or shield from detection such alien in any place, including any building or means of transportation. So, in other words, any person who does this engages in any conspiracy to commit any of the preceding acts, or aids or abets the commission of any of the preceding acts, shall be punished as provided below. So, yeah. This is a bit of a problem. They can be fined or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both. So I'm just going to ask the question, because this is a criminal penalty, by the way, that if the city and the city council knowingly, and this is part of what goes along with Chicago and, Governor Pritzker and all of this stuff. If the city knowingly harbors, conceals, shields from detection, or even attempts to harbor, conceal, or shield from detection any aliens, which they've already admitted by putting this in here, oh yeah, we're a Fourth Amendment city, or we're a sanctuary city. I suggest that they are violating Title 8, U.S. Code 1324. So, yeah. This is going to set up, I personally think this is setting up a very interesting scenario, and I honestly think, and I really hope, because, again, not that I'm necessarily looking to jail these people, but I am sort of Mrs. Whiskey says that I'm a black and white person when it comes to things of this nature. Okay. That I'm kind of a follow the rules kind of guy. And I honestly believe that they might be able to have a case here with regards to Title 8, U.S. Code, Section 1324. So, yeah. Because they also have this part, which is under 1324, 1A4, or IV. If they encourage or induce an alien to come to, enter, or reside in the United States, knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact that such coming to, entry, or residence is or will be in violation of law, they also shall be punished. Yeah. So again, you not only have the one where they harbor, conceal, they're doing this on purpose. They're harboring and concealing all of this stuff, okay? And now they're encouraging or inducing these illegal aliens to reside in the United States. Folks, I'm just reading the law. I'm just putting it out there, and you can pull it. This is from the Cornell Law School. These people are committing a criminal act. That's what they're doing. That's what we're doing. And I don't know how they're going to get away with it. This is federal law. This doesn't seem to make sense to me as to how these people are going to be able to get away with this. Whether it's Durham, North Carolina's city council, or whether it's the governor or mayor of any state and city within the United States, they are essentially, based on what I'm reading here, because it doesn't say, hey, if you're a government official, you can avoid this. No, it says literally, any person who, and then lists several of these under the 8 U.S. Code 1324. They are clearly in violation of this. And the fact that they've made it public knowledge now just gives easy evidence to be able to present at any kind of a trial for all of this. This is, honestly, we've got to start going after these people for this. They are literally, by doing the things that they are doing, they are literally harboring illegal aliens. They are shielding them from detection. They are encouraging to them to reside in the United States. Whether they know or are in reckless disregard to the fact, which all of this is in violation of law. If you know that there are people here who are illegal aliens, this just needs to, this needs to start being enforced. This is Title 8, United States Code, Section 1324. It is a literal violation of everything. I can't even imagine why. And to be honest with you, I would think Attorney General Pam Bondi would be the one who would actually start bringing these and telling people, hey, guess what? All you sanctuary cities, you guys are in violation of all this. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Let's see. What do we have? Oh, usually I would have these all put up and queued up, but anyway. All right. So let me tell you real quick, if you are a fan of the show and you would like to get yourself or demonstrate that you are a fan of the show and you want to become a unpaid walking billboard for the show, all you have to do is head on over to store.americanperspective.online and you'll be able to get and purchase a logoed gear product, whether it's a shirt, crew neck sweatshirt, hoodie, something along those lines. Yeah, you can go and check it out. Go to store.americanperspective.online and check out all the things that I have. Become a walking billboard for me, please. They're good shirts, though. They're good quality products. And they have the fantastic American Perspective logo in 3 different styles that you can choose from, depending upon the color of the item that you are getting. You can also check out some of the other ones from, and yes, I know, Bonnie, I'm checking on those. You can also check out some of the other products that I have, like coffee mugs, water bottles, things like that. Most of those come in white, so they come with only with Logo 3 version. But anyway, go ahead and check out. Go to store.americanperspective.online. Check it out today and grab any kind of shirt or whatever. I promise you, I'm doing everything I can to not overcharging folks, because let's face it, the economy still is not where we would like it to be. And I only want to take a small portion. I want you to get the most benefit. So you guys are paying almost cost. And obviously there is a little bit of tax on there, but the point being, though, is, folks, that you can go and check it out. Go to store.americanperspective.online. Check out all of my offerings. You'll also find links for places like the Constitution of the United States, as well as links to the former Whiskey Musing store that are all there. So you can go and check all of that out. Go to store.americanperspective.online. That's store.americanperspective.online. And you will be able to get you'll be able to get a look at all of my offerings, and I do appreciate you at least looking, and if you pick something up, that would be fantastic too. Store.americanperspective.online. Go and check it out today. All right. Let's see. So there's a possibility that another late night host might be on the chopping block. Yeah, this follows. I mean, I don't know. I've seen some people say that Colbert's off the air now. That's a rhyming thing. Colbert off the air. I hope he is, because frankly, I mean, let's just face it, they all need to go. But it would be kind of nice to see another late night host on the chopping block. But apparently, the conservative watchdog group, the Center for American Rights, has filed a complaint with the Federal Communications Commission against ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live. Now, the reason why they filed this complaint is based on the fact that they are claiming that he participated in unlawful politicking and violated network broadcast licensing rules. They're accusing him of improperly using public airwaves by using the show to exclusively promote far-left Democrat policies and politicians. And by the way, without disclosing to his audience that those same policies and politicians, especially the politicians, that he had contributed to those. Now, there is a law that deals with this. Whenever you're dealing with a particular, and this is part of the reason why 60 Minutes ended up in so much hot water, because of the fact that they were doing what is essentially known as an in-kind contribution to in that particular case, the Democrat Party with the Harris interview, because they didn't necessarily give Donald Trump the exact same time. This is part of the reason why Joe Rogan was also saying, hey, I'll give you equal time, but she never took him up on it. So what you have to do when you're in the broadcasting business like this, because of elections law and so on and so forth. So for an example, if I were to go and have a political person on in an interview, whether I liked it or not, I would basically have to offer up and show that I had earnestly tried to get the opponent on this show in order to be able to be in compliance if I were a FCC covered entity. Thankfully, I'm not. Podcasting is not FCC covered as of yet. But all of that being the case, this particular case with Jimmy Kimmel, yeah, this might be a bit of a problem. So Daniel Sir, who is the president of the Center for American Rights, stated, late night hosts are notorious for using their airtime to support left and disparage the right. ABC's Jimmy Kimmel is perhaps the worst offender. What's no laughing matter is Kimmel's consistent disregard for the FCC's conflict of interest policies, which prohibit using the airwaves to advance his personal political agenda. Sir continued and laid out the entire grift. He says Kimmel is making a mockery of the American people by including major Democrat politicians as just another guest on the show. The reality is that he has undisclosed skin in the game. He's financially supporting the Democrat Party, hosting massive fundraising events, and then bringing these candidates on his show for a free softball interview. And this is essentially why he could potentially be in hot water. So these can be potentially considered to be thinly veiled commercials for the Democrat Party. Now, all of this has been well documented by organizations like the Media Research Center, which conducted a study in July that found for the first half of 2025, 99% of late night comedy host guests were, surprise, Democrat. So, there you go. So, yeah. Anyway, frequent flyers on Jimmy Kimmel's show are Senators Cory Booker, Tammy Duckworth, and Jasmine Crockett. So, yeah. There you go. Now, the campaign obviously wasn't limited to elected officials either. It included members of the Democrat Party propaganda arm. Broken down, 9 of the guests were MSNBC hosts, or MSLSD. If you ever listen to Mark Levin, you'll know what I mean by that, including Chris Hayes, who made 3 appearances on various shows. 8 were CNN hosts. 6 were CNN employees. The only guest who could be remotely considered a conservative was American Compass economist and commentator Orrin Class, who did appear on The Daily Show to discuss President Trump's tariffs. But there you go. So, yeah, we'll just kind of have to see what's going to happen here. But, yeah. Oh, all right, folks, let's go ahead and move into tonight's question of the week. All right, tonight's question of the week is submitted by none other than G over on Rumble. So here is G's question. Now, this is kind of complicated, so let me get all the way through it first. He says, "Hi, Rick. Here's a question that may be a little too large or ambitious to handle in one sitting, but let me know what you think." Well, obviously, I'm going to handle it. I'm going to try anyway. The topic is the militia versus the National Guard. He's like, let's look at the major differences between these military bodies and how they are organized or regulated, if you will. He asks, are all states required to have a National Guard? Do they? Do all states have federal regulations as to how that is done? Then he asks, what about the state militia? Is it significantly different from a National Guard? Do all the states have one? Who are the entities that control these bodies, or what authority can control these bodies? Then he goes, what about other kinds of militia? Is there a requirement to apply to organize such a unit, or can it be just a bunch of friends? Would paramilitary units like the Black Panthers or Guardian Angels be considered militia? And would these entities be taken on a case-by-case basis as to their legality? And he says, let's start with this and see if any other questions pose themselves while it's being discussed. And he says, thank you, G. All right, so let's take a closer look at this. So, first of all, the term militia, by the way, has been since the beginning of our time, because it was actually many of the states had a militia. The militia was more like a quick reactionary force because of the fact that early on in the colonies' days, there was no standing army here. There were there were some platoons later, and redcoats, the English military. But the fact of the matter is that the militia stood for the civilians who acted in let's consider it a paramilitary way. Now, the militia did do a key role in the American Revolution, because while the Continental Army worked on some of the stuff and was able to go head to head with the redcoats, or the English army at the time, the militia spent a lot of time harassing supply lines, disrupting things in terms of the back end work, and acted in more of a way of like guerrilla forces during the American Revolutionary War. Now, the militia was designed and deemed to be made up of citizens, that it was not necessarily tied to a particular military force, because, of course, back in the day, the Americans did not believe necessarily in a standing army. All of that being said, a lot of this changed. It changed under what's called the Militia Act of 1903. Now, the Militia Act is actually pretty short. I mean, it's really not all that big. And here, I'm showing it to you on the screen right now, okay, is under Title 10, U.S. Code, Section 246. There is a difference. And they define the militia of the United States consists of all able-bodied males of at least 17 years of age and, except as provided in Section 313 of Title 32, under 45 years of age who are or who have made a declaration of intent to become citizens of the United States and of female citizens of the United States who are members of the National Guard. But here's the thing. It's broken up into two parts. The organized militia, which is classified as the National Guard and the Naval Militia, and also the unorganized militia, which consists of members of the militia who are not members of the National Guard or the Naval Militia. So we actually have two parts here. So when you ask about the militia, okay, versus the National Guard, the National Guard is essentially considered to be the organized militia. But the militia, by definition, consists of everyone, the entire public, who are able-bodied males, at least 17 years of age, and no more than 45 years of age, so between the ages of 17 and 45, and are citizens of the United States, or have declared their intention to become citizens of the United States. So that pretty much covers everything for the most part. Now, it does also mention that they need to be members of the National Guard, but that doesn't mean because the unorganized militia is the other class. It consists of members who are not members of the National Guard. So pretty much, technically, legally speaking, everybody is the militia. And there you go. So, there is a difference, though, between the militia and the National Guard. The National Guard may be considered the militia, but it's the organized militia. Now, the reason for this, by the way, the reason for the Militia Act was in order to be able to take the National Guard and actually organize it under the regular army. And this is part of the reason why they call it the organized militia. So what they're doing is they're basically saying, hey, we have three kinds of classes. We have the regular army or the regular military troops. We have the organized militia, which is the National Guard, and then we have the unorganized militia, which is pretty much everybody else. So there you go. And that's how they're organized. And in terms of regulating, it's just the organized militia that is really regulated technically, as far as that goes. The unorganized militia is just citizens. That's it. So you ask, are all states required to have a National Guard? I don't believe they're necessarily required to have one, but every state does have one. And actually, even inside, for an example, now you remember I was telling you there's two different, for the National Guard, there's two different classifications. There's Title 10, which is obviously the federal side, and then there's Title 32. Title 32 covers that, basically says under 32, Title 32 U.S. Code 104, that each state, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands all have National Guard locations. So the organization of the Army National Guard and its composition of units shall be the same as those prescribed for the Army, subject in time of peace and such exceptions as the Secretary of the Army may authorize, etc., Air National Guard, so on and so forth. So, yeah, there you go. Yes, all the states do have them. And they all have federal regulations, which, like I just pointed out, for it. Now, let's see. Who are the entities that control the bodies? Well, obviously, the National Guard, the organized militia, National Guard, is covered by two possible entities. When they're operating under Title 10, which is their regular, that would be considered regular Army duties or regular military, when they're called up by the president and that command structure has control of them. When they're operating under Title 32, it is the governors, generally speaking, with the exception of D.C., the governors are the ones that are in control under Title 32. The militia, the unorganized militia, they would have a civilian authority, which essentially would be the governors of the states, technically. So that's kind of where that sort of breaks down. Let's see. Is there a requirement to apply to organize such a unit? No, not that I'm aware of. Because, again, the unorganized militia is just pretty much anybody and everybody else. So, paramilitary units like the Black Panthers or the Guardian Angels be considered militia? Legally, I don't think so. Yeah, I honestly, they could, but legally, I don't believe that's the case. So, yeah, they would have to be, I would guess that these entities would likely be taken on a case-by-case basis, but realistically, they probably are not going to be considered militia at all. Because of the fact that the Black Panthers or the Guardian Angels don't have like an elected civilian authority, say the governor of the state would be in charge. So, there you go. I think that covered everything that you had here. And yes, David over on Facebook said, do you see where the Department of Defense went to the Department of War? Actually, it went back to the Department of War. Department of War has been around for much longer than the Department of Defense ever was. And so they just took it back, historically speaking, took it back to its original naming convention. So there you go. No, Bonnie, I don't think that the Whiskey Warriors could be considered a militia. I'm sorry, I just don't think so. For one, many of us are older than the requirements for the militia. In terms of all of that. All right. Oh, well, yeah, so there you go. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is an interesting concept, honestly, and it's where a lot of people get confused because many people think that, like, the National Guard is the militia. But the National Guard, I mean, technically it's the militia, but it's not. It's the organized militia because it is not clarified because it is under the Department of the Army in particular. If you're looking at like the Army National Guard, under the regular military services, they sort of are classified more as not a militia because militia has generally been considered citizens that are put together. Now, keep in mind, SCOTUS has actually recognized the fact that the militia is different than the National Guard. So they have in past SCOTUS cases, they have recognized that the militia is separate from the National Guard. So, and again, I mean, there's a lot of little nuances that go along with it, but anyway. All right, folks, if you want to have your question answered on a Saturday night, all you need to do is send in your question of the week to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will go ahead and get you in to the rotation. I don't have any others. That was a good one by G. I do appreciate that. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel. Hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up or thumbs down across all of my platforms, whether or not it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your weekend, and good night, everybody.